How long have you been a CEO at Sutton Mencap?
It's nearly 10 years. I started in, let's get this right, it's end of February 2013. So nearly 10 years.
What was your previous job?
I've done lots of jobs in charities. I've worked in charities for 25 years or more. And before I worked at Sutton Mencap, I worked for an organisation where I helped link charities into the work of the council and the NHS. So it was all about sort of partnership work between council, NHS and local charities and voluntary organisations.
Oh wow, what company was that called?
It's for a company called Merton Voluntary Service Council, and I worked there on and off for about 12 years, something like that, so I was there for quite a long time.
Wow. So what was it that appealed to you about working for Sutton Mencap?
I suppose I knew a bit about the organisation before I started. Thinking back, and it always struck me as a really good organisation, really well run. It did work that mattered, that was really good, that was interesting. So I always thought, when I sort of thought it'd be nice to work more directly with local communities, thought, that would be a really exciting organisation to work for. And it has been. It's been fabulous.
Oh, cool. What are the general duties of being a CEO at Sutton Mencap?
That's a tricky one. I think one of the things I'd say is we're a small organisation, so I think everyone chips in a bit with everything else. So there are times when I find myself picking litter up off the lawn, or any things that need doing, and we all have to do a bit of that. And I think that's quite handy in a way, keeping yourself connected with what else is happening in the organisation. My main role, I guess, is with the trustee board, who are responsible for the charity. I help them set a strategy, decide what the organisation's going to do, what it wants to achieve. And then my job really is to put that strategy into place. So whether that's developing new services like the Digital Paths to Inclusion project, whether it's trying to work with service managers to expand the services that we've got. So we've done quite a lot of work on trying to increase the number of people on our adult services and on our children's services as well. So that's a big part of it. So it's those sort of things. It's trying to push those things forward and help the organisation develop and grow, and all the time ensuring that what we're doing is really good and really making a difference to the lives of the people that we want to support. Yeah.
What were the challenging tasks during COVID?
Gosh, you're right, it was a really challenging time, and I think I was throughout really aware of the challenges that were faced by the people that use our services and their families. I think one of the most difficult things in many ways was having to close services briefly, and having to, when services reopened, that we weren't able to support as many people as we had before, and being concerned that a lot of people who would really value and really value coming to our services, that they're going to miss out. And that, or they're not going to get as much as they need. So really aware of that, I suppose, that responsibility that we have to the people that we support, and wanting to do everything that we can to be there for them and to support them through a really difficult time. There was a lot of work, I guess, around supporting staff at the same time as well. You might remember we had the furlough scheme, which paid staff when they weren't able to work for us, which was great to be able to do, but was complicated. And also at the same time, there's always a worry that staff are losing connection, and I guess just wanted to make sure they're okay. And it was great. We had a few staff, a few of the managers as well, just checking in on people, checking they were okay, which was a really important part of that. But and another area, I suppose, that I'm responsible for is the money, is making sure that we've got enough money to run the services. And obviously COVID had a huge impact on the amount of money we got. we only get paid if we run services, and a lot of services weren't able to run. And although we were very lucky to get some support from the council during that period for some of that time, for a lot of that time we were on our own, and that was quite a worry, making sure that we had enough money to keep the organisation going and that we stayed afloat. And I'm pleased to say we did.
How was the sessions on Zoom?
I mean, I didn't attend many of the sessions, but the conversations I had with people about them were really positive. I think. I mean, what I'm pleased about, and again, it's why I like working here. We could have just organised some chances for people to meet up, and that was it. But instead, what the staff did, who ran those sessions, was to really concentrate on making those sessions as good as they could be. Really put some time into planning. They planned quizzes and karaoke and all sorts of things that they put into it to make sure they were good. And I got the feeling that people really enjoyed them. I was quite pleased when we were able to open all of our services, and particularly services like groupies and high flyers that we got in the evening, which meant that in the end people could meet up face to face, and I think that's what people really like doing. But it was really good to know that we could do something, and those groups were very popular, and people like Tony ran some sessions, I think Jude ran some sessions, quite a few people ran some sessions, and they were great, really good, and Geraldine obviously doing lots as well. They were good, really good.
How well do you think we have recovered from COVID? And has there been any positives from the experience?
Well, I think we run now as if COVID is over for the time being. We're aware that there's still a risk, that COVID still represents a risk. There could be another variant. I'm no expert on these things, but we've got to be mindful that actually, that things could go backwards in terms of COVID. But for now, we run as if our services are back to normal. We're continuing to do staff testing and continuing to make sure the building is clean, and continuing to, for instance, if somebody who would usually come to our services is off and is unwell, it's helpful for us to know, for instance, whether they've tested positive for COVID, and just to see whether there could have been any impact more widely than that. So we recognise it's still there. I think in terms of positives, it's hard. Yeah, I mean, it's a horrible illness for anybody who's had it. It's a horrible illness, and it's hard to see it other than a really difficult time. I'm pleased with how people pulled together. I'm pleased with what we did as an organisation, that we did carry on and we did support people, and we were always looking at ways in which we could do more for people, and that's great. But if I'm honest, it would be great to see it behind us for good, and for us to just think, no, actually we can really focus on doing what we do, and going back to how we worked before the pandemic. What are your main goals for the future for Sutton MENCAP? Oh, that's a good one, because I think obviously my interest is in the strategy, in what we're looking to achieve, and I don't want to talk too long. I'm not sure whether people watching this will want to go into great detail on Sutton MENCAP's strategy, but the main areas that we focus on we have three areas of our strategy. One is around service development, one is around community development, and one is around service support. The last one of those, service support, is fairly straightforward. It's about the building and the resources and the equipment and everything else that we need, and making sure we've got enough money and making sure we've got enough staff. It's all the internal things that we need to get right to deliver the services and the activities that we want to do. So it's making sure we've got all of that, and there's hopefully some really exciting opportunities to expand the organisation. We're looking at having more space to deliver services from, and expanding the number of people we can support. Probably getting a new minibus as well, which would be quite nice, and all sorts of things like that are really good. So the service support side is kind of like, very important, but less of an issue, I guess, for the people who use our services. In terms of service development, that is all about wanting to expand services where we can. We know there's lots of people who would like to come to Sutton MENCAP, lots of children and young people whose families would really like them to come here, and lots of adults that can really benefit from things like our day service and breakaways. And we just don't have the space to be able to take people on. We often find that we're full. And so finding ways in which we can expand services is really important for us. And then the last area I'd mention is just about this thing around community development, which always sounds a bit, what does that mean? What's it about? I'm always conscious that there are lots of people with a learning disability in Sutton, and not all of them will want to come to Sutton MenCap or be able to come to Sutton MenCap, but we should still be there for them in terms of trying to make Sutton a really decent place for people with a learning disability to live. We need to make sure that our leisure centres are open and accessible to people, and there's a lot of work going on those sort of things. That people have got things to do and places to go and just feel welcome wherever they go. And that's something that's really important to me, and I know, Bradley, that's part of your work is around that, strengthening the voice of people with a learning disability, and making sure that Sutton is a good place for someone with a learning disability to grow up and to live in.
Yeah. And finally, what are the best bits of your job?
I think we've got a great team at Sutton MenCap. It's a really enjoyable group of people to work with, and to see the enthusiasm that they put into their work is always fantastic. It's when you spend a bit of time on service and seeing the way people work, it's